All right, let's do it. So we will officially call the city council meeting to order, special city council meeting to order at 5:15 p.m. We have 5 of 7 members present. If you guys will please stand and join me in saying the pledges. First, to the U.S. flag, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And to the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance, or honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. I haven't had enough coffee today, y'all, so I apologize. Okay, so we now have public comments. We have a few people that have submitted paperwork for their public comments, so I will call you forward. If you could just state your name and address for the record, then you will have 3 minutes to speak. So first, we have Melody Hanson. Thank you for being here, Melody.
As a former council member, I understand a little bit about what you do. And I am saying that I'm just shocked that someone would not support this. So I'm 100% in favor of this exemption and would encourage you to vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Melody. Next, we have Kale Hansen. Kale, thank you for being here.
Welcome. Cale Hansen, 9500 Live Oak Court.
Thank you, Kale. Appreciate that. Next, we have Doyle Thompson. Doyle, thank you for being here, sir.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Doyle Thompson. I live at 5810 Cara in Manvel. And Rosie may correct some of my amounts, but I'm here to speak in favor of the 5% homestead property tax exemption. I've watched in interest the last few council meetings where the exemption has been discussed. The result in these early meetings was to delay the vote until such time as the preliminary tax numbers could be forecasted. Then last week, the preliminary numbers were presented, and as best as I could discern from the discussion, that there was a projected increased property taxes of $1.3 million and $500,000 to $600,000 in increase in projected sales tax revenue for next year for a total tax increase of $1.8 million. Also, as I understanding that a 5% homestead exemption would be about $600,000 less property revenue that in a sense is offset by the increased sales tax revenue. This would still leave a projected budgeted tax revenue increase of $1.2 million for the next fiscal year. And I believe the most equitable way to apply this exemption would be as a percentage of property value. With inflation, with insurance going up, and with everything, I think that, you know, it is, if we don't do it now, when would we do it? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here. Next, we have Marilyn Barnes. Marilyn, thank you for being here, ma'am. If you could state your name and address for the record, you have 3 minutes.
My name is Marilyn Barnes. I live at 9402 Turnstone Drive here in Manvel. My question was to whether or not the homestead exemptions are the same. Didn't mean to do that. The same across the board here. So that was one of my questions. I am for increasing the homestead exemptions for all, because being a senior over 65, and like Mr. Thompson has stated, our homeowners insurance, wind insurance here in the Manvel area, all of that is increasing. So any additional support or discounts, rebates, and the homeowners homestead exemption would give us that option. Okay, so that's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have Mr. David Jones. David, thank you for being here, sir.
Good Good evening, Mayor and Council and staff. I think my neighbors, Doyle and Marilyn, have said everything that I was going to say. Actually, for those of us who are in the Serenity community, my address is 5726 Caracara Street, which is a 55-plus community. Anything that we can get to help us, reduce our costs for those of us who are on a fixed income would be appreciated. And I'm definitely in favor of a 5% reduction in the homestead exemption applied to taxes through the homestead exemption. And understanding that, that it won't impact any of or have a negative impact on any of the current exemptions that those of us who are 65 plus enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The last speaker that is signed up to speak tonight is Miss Jeanette Rogue. Thank you for being here, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Jeanette Rogge. I live at 8305 Kirshner Road. My husband and family have been here for 30 years. There is a recession on, and we are in trouble. And we need help. And that help you can give us is through that homestead exemption. And if we're drowning, please help us with that homestead exemption.
Thank you, ma'am, and my apologies for mispronouncing your name. It was either one of the two. I had a 50-50 shot, so I did my best. Don't take me to Vegas. All right. Moving on, we now have the city manager update. Dan, do you have anything for us tonight?
No, sir.
No? All right. Any wisdom for us?
Well, the only thing I guess we could mention, Chief, I'd spring on you real quick. The flock cameras that started getting installed, I know there's some public notice. I guess the public has noticed that the flock cameras are going up. Can you just give a quick overview? Sorry, I didn't prepare you for that.
As of this morning, we have over half of the flock cameras that we have projected to install have been installed. We're still waiting on TxDOT to give us the permits to put them along the major corridors on the state highways. I also saw some of the comments that were made. I can assure you this is not Big Brother. It's nothing that is going to be able to find people's personal information. They're basically license plate readers, which give us descriptions and license plates of cars. That's it. There's no information that is derived from that. If we want that information, we run it through our state computer system. But this has nothing to do with that. But we have most of those already installed now. They have been a very vital part of our criminal investigations. We've utilized them not only through our city, but through other cities that have those within the neighborhoods and throughout the cities. It's going to be an important tool for us, and it's something that's going to benefit the citizens to help us keep criminals out of the city.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Chief. I've been telling people it's cameras set up to track paranormal activity. Someone else I saw online said that it's a BS tracker, so I thought all of that was very humorous. Just a nod and a smile. All right, what we'll do is we'll now move on to the only agenda item that we have tonight. This is consideration and possible action to approve the first of two readings of ordinance 2024-0-22. And council, I'll introduce this item as I was the one who called this special meeting. We'll turn it over to staff and see if Dan or Rosie have any information they'd like to update us on. And at that point, we'll open it up to council comments and questions, and ultimately a vote at that point. I want to start off with saying, and he's not unfortunately here tonight, Councilman Perry, he presided over our last meeting, and much appreciation to him for doing that. And thank you to all of you in the community that have made time in your schedules to be here tonight. This is the most that I've seen in a council meeting in a long time, and for it to be a special council meeting shows that this item is of the utmost importance to you. So thank you for being here and making time for this. So to explain why we're having this special council meeting, we actually began working on the homestead exemption a year ago. 4 new members were elected to city council, and at that point, we started to consider putting in a homestead exemption. According to the way things work, you have to have it put into effect prior to July 1st. So unfortunately, a year ago, we did not have enough time to do that. What that meant is we then built it into our budget timeline to begin having the discussions this year with enough time to get it, if we wanted to, put in place prior to July 1st. An ordinance, which is what would be used to put a homestead exemption in place, requires 2 approvals at 2 separate meetings. And so the timeline had the first approval being made during our first meeting in June, the second approval being made during our second meeting in June, which is June 17th, this upcoming Monday. At our last meeting, we had 2 council members that were absent. And of course, this council meeting, we now have 2 council members that are absent. And so my big ask for us tonight, and we can have some discussion, is my hope would be that we get this approved tonight, the first approval, so that we can all come back together on the 17th with the other 2 members present and make a final decision at that point. And I do want to express my appreciation to staff for all of the data that's included in the packet. For those of you in the community, our agenda packets are posted online. You can access that agenda packet, and it has a lot of the data that staff is presenting to us. It's now available to you as well. If I could predict the future, and if I could tell you what your future would be, I'd open a business and make a lot of money. I can't do that. What I can do is make decisions based off of the facts that are in front of us and what those facts tell us, the story that they tell us. And so I thank staff for working hard to put all of these facts in front of us. So what we'll do now is I'd like to turn it over to Dan or Rosie, kind of give us a high-level run-through. I know you did present it at the last council meeting. Then we'll open it up for comments and questions. Rosie?
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. The first sheet on your packet is the different percentages that we've looked at. It hasn't changed since the last meeting that where everybody was present. The second one is the delta from last year's to this year's. If we base it on the same tax rate that we currently have, that would be increasing our M&O, which is our operating budget, to 1.3 million. The third worksheet is your sales tax. I'm predicting about a $480,000 increase in next year's sales tax, but only 80,000 stay with the city. And the next page is just a simple graph, a pie chart demonstrating how the sales tax gets distributed on most 380 agreements. And then I did do a budget without any capital, without any transfers out to any other funds. In other words, this is just if we stayed status quo. No new hires, no new equipment, no new employee raises.
Okay. Is that all that you have to
Yes,
present
sir.
to us? Okay. So I'll go first, Council. And Rosie, I'm going to want to ask you here a few
Sure.
questions about the budget specifically. And then we'll open it up for Council. But a few comments first. During my time when I was on City Council and, as mayor as well, I believe that we need to not place the burden of growth on our existing taxpayers. I do not want Manvel to be known as the city with taxes on the rise. As we see growth coming, I believe that we can leverage that growth to live within our means, just like every single person in this room is doing, to effectively manage their budgets, to leverage the growth, and not continue to ask them to carry more and more and more. When we talk about the exemption over 65. That's, for those of you that don't know, if you are over 65 years old in the city of Manvel, you get a $90,000 homestead exemption, which is great. But the reality is, with how much value your homes are increasing in year after year after year, in 2 or 3 years, that savings goes away. When we implement an exemption as a percentage, which I believe, Rosie and Bobby, correct me if I'm wrong, for a homestead exemption, for what we're looking at, it can only be a percentage by state law. The value in that is that as your value increases for your home, you keep that savings. That savings doesn't dissipate with a flat amount being applied. When you look at other cities, over 60% of the cities in Brazoria County have a homestead exemption. And let's look at the major cities. City of Pearland has a 2.5% exemption. The city of Angleton has a 3%. Iowa Colony, which is a smaller city than Manvel, primarily residential based, has an exemption of 10%. The city of Alvin just increased theirs to 20%. The city of Clute has 20%. The city of Freeport has 20%. We are the only major population city in the entire county that does not have a homestead exemption. We could theoretically wait for sales tax revenue to come in, for more businesses to open. But we will find ourselves in the same position that Pearland recently found themselves in. At a certain point, you plateau in growth. To implement a homestead exemption, you do it now, so that way you can leverage the growth that's coming in to offset that difference. When the city of Pearland tried to increase theirs from 2.5%, they received a lot of pushback from the business community, because understandably so, they were then going to be asked to carry more of the burden, because Pearland's not growing the same way that cities like Manvel or Iowa Colony are growing. You know, the definition of insanity is that you keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. The people that are out there elected 5 new members in the past 2 years, 2 of you beating incumbents, because they want to see us do something different. If we keep doing the same thing as our predecessors have done, we will find ourselves in those seats, not in this seat. Last year, a survey went out. Over 700 people responded to the survey. First time this had happened in the city. 74% of those people said they do not want to see their taxes go up. What did this government do? It raised taxes that fall. 24 hours ago, I put out a poll. We had over, last I checked, 381 responses. And the poll simply asked, would you be fine seeing your taxes go up if it meant investing in projects that our community wants? Or would you rather delay those projects in order to see your taxes go lower? Of the 381 responses in less than 24 hours, 335 people said they want their taxes to be lower, meaning they are fine delaying some, not all projects, but some projects in order to see their taxes lowered. You know, it's never the right time to lose revenue for a governmental entity, for a business, for your home, but we are public servants. And being in the mindset of servitude is placing others' needs before your own. And we have to choose to put the community's needs before the needs of the government. And I think this budget uniquely positions us to do that. Yeah, as I thought a lot about this over the weekend and last week as well, it's becoming evidently clear to me that a line is being drawn in the sand. There's no more just giving verbal platitudes of saying you want to lower taxes. You are either for lowering taxes or you are for raising taxes. Jesus was very clear that there is a line that is drawn in the sand and you are either on one side of it or you on the other side of it. I know which side of the line that I want to be on. So my hope is that we get an exemption in place. Ideally, it would be 5%. And what that allows us to do is maybe we can't do everything that we'd want to do in this year's budget, but it allows us to become fully staffed because we still have vacant positions. It allows us to catch up on some of the capital projects that are in the works, which we have a lot of spinning plates right now. And it gives the community, these people out here who bust their butts every single day, a little bit of breathing room, just a little bit of a break. So Rosie, just a few questions here. You said that the $1.8 million surplus that's in the budget, because it shows revenues compared to expenditures, about a $1.8 million surplus. That is not including any cost of living increase. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, if we gave a 3% cost of living increase, what would that look like?
About 400,000.
Okay. So we would then have 1.4 million. And if we say, the estimate, if we gave a 5% homestead exemption, 5% homestead exemption would be 476,000. So that's about, let's just say 900K. 900K of that 1.8. So you would then still have $900,000 based off of the proposed budget that could then be used to hire some positions, do some smaller capital projects, make some small investments. But I want to be clear about something. If we gave a homestead exemption, would it mean that we have to fire any employees?
No, sir.
Would it mean that we'd have to cut any services?
No, sir.
Would it mean that we'd have to stop any of our capital projects currently happening?
No, sir.
Okay. So, what I'll just leave it at is the quintessential beauty of American exceptionalism is that we have a right to own our own property and do what we want to do on that property. And as a government, what's happening across the board, we are not the only ones that make up the tax bill. But what's happening is governments are forcing people out of their homes because they can't afford to pay the taxes to live in the home that they are raising their family, that they have so many memories in. And for me, I am in support of not crushing people's dreams of living in their homes, and that's why I'm in support, council, of this homestead exemption. I understand that you might not be, and I completely respect that decision. My ask would be, at a minimum, what we do tonight is let's get this passed tonight. Let's come back together on the 17th. Let's let Councilman Perry, let's let Councilman Lance, let's all of us come together to make a final decision at that point. But with that, I've taken up enough of our time. I'll open it up to any council comments and/or questions.
Okay.
Councilman?
Hello. So Rosie, the last one, it said the roof count was 5,102, and now it shows 4,407. Difference of 600, 700 homes.
Those are in the TERS. The 695 are in the TERS. 4,407 are in our tax base, and then 695 are in the TERS.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, I see. Yeah. So we can't go 10%? I mean, if we're going to go, let's go all in.
It's doable
Okay,
with some cuts.
go all in.
Well, let me just ask a clarifying question, Rosie. When you say cuts, it is not any cuts from the existing budget.
No.
That is just, it would limit in what new things we can do.
Exactly.
By going 10%. So we would still be able to do new things, just not as much as maybe what's.
If you go the full million, you would, because we also get affected by inflation, by things increasing. So unfortunately, if you tie down the full million, you would be tying our hands as far as any new capital, any new equipment. For example, I know that one of the major pieces of equipment that is being requested is a street sweeper. And that's a $2 million piece of equipment. And without that, your subdivisions will not be able to be swept or cleaned without us going out and renting one, which is a very high expense to rent something like that, as often as those streets would need to be swept. And for us to do that, we would also have to have a staff member operating that.
One second,
sweeper.
Rosie. Hey, guys, I'm going to ask if we could just please be respectful out there, because when you guys are talking and laughing, it's tough for us to hear up here. So if you guys could please, if you need to talk or giggle or whatever it is, you can take it out into the lobby. Thank you. Go ahead, Rosie.
So that would also entail another staff member just to operate that sweeper full-time. Because yes, we are growing, and subdivisions is the place where they're growing the most. And that's where the sweeper is required and needed.
Okay. Councilwoman Sarmiento?
Thank you. Ms. Rosie, thank you so much for the information. So I know we've been talking about, for the last year, the things that we needed. We had elaborate presentations from all the department heads of those areas that really needed investing in. And I was one of the proponents for us to adopt the rate without raising it so that we could at least have some breath of fresh air, right? Some breathing room to catch up on everything that when Mayor Dan and I were running, and Councilman Harry, we were told by the community that we wanted roads, we wanted all these things, right? But then when it came to adopting the tax rate, it was in order for us to do the basic, the bare minimums, we needed to adopt that rate, 0.56. Without raising the rate, but in essence, the values of our homes are being raised because of Brazoria County tax appraisal. And because they're raising it at an astronomical rate and they continue to max out year after year after year, we thought that doing that would give us that room. So now that we're here and we're looking at, they're not stopping. We can't count on Brazoria County or the people that we vote for to go there and to assess our homes and to fight for us, we have to do it here. So on the front end, when we adopted the 0.56, that gave us these values that we're looking at here. But now if we go the full 10%, which that was my question is, so 1 million, it's $952,294, right? That's the loss of revenue if we
Yes.
adopt the full 10%. The actual home relief, the relief that each resident will, the average, is that $186?
Yes,
Average
Average.
per year.
per year.
So by all of the 4,407 homes that we have in the tax base, they each would receive a relief of $186 approximately.
Approximate.
And we would take a $952,294 hit.
Yes.
Okay, so now my question is this: with that hit, on Mayor Dan's question is, do we lose any personnel?
No.
Do we sacrifice any of the benefits, families, anything like that?
No.
Okay. Do our police officers lose anything?
If I could address that one, so we're obviously still in the budget process right now. I think probably the best way to look at it is the growth. We can't keep up with the growth as well as we would like to, whether that's the police department or public works or a combination. That's what we'll have to figure out, and that's what we'll be presenting to you. Hey, it's $1 million less, so whatever that equates to, however many people and patrol cars and all that kind of good stuff. So it's not, we can keep the base budget like we have right now. It's the growth to manage all of these other people that are coming to me.
Got it. So we have to work within our means now. The growth is coming. We just got to get very frugal so that we can find which way to make that happen so that everybody gets a little bit of relief, but we're not compromising the city falling behind and taxes on the rise, right? Okay, so I watched the last council meeting that unfortunately I wasn't here for. And what I didn't hear was a solution for that. So that's that, and I'm pretty sure, I know Dan and yourself, y'all are back there trying to crunch numbers and figure out, okay, if we lose this, where do we make that up? And I know that we're forecasting sales incentives to come up, right? Sales taxes, forgive me. And I remember the session before that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you said, not now. We don't have the projected sales tax revenue from HEB and the new businesses, but we will, hopefully, in the next year to 2 years. Is that right? Or,
Depending on how fast those businesses come in.
okay,
Because of course, construction time is, most of the time, it's at least a year and a half on most of your businesses.
so I fall back on the situation that we have at hand, is we want to be the city that encourages businesses to come so that our homeowners have relief. But at the same time, it's a catch-22 because it's difficult, as everyone knows. We're making changes. I'm well aware of that. Things are getting better. Is we need to find ways to incentivize those businesses to come in effectively and a little bit faster. Because to Mayor's point, other cities around us, they're blowing us out the water with the way they incentivize their homeowners, but they're also incentivizing businesses to come to give them that. And I feel like we're pushing businesses away and pushing taxes away, and we're only focusing on the internal. And I know that doesn't sound fair to you, Manager Dan. I know that. But at the same time, on our end, we hear from the community. We need to do a better job of figuring out a solution to get the businesses here faster and more efficiently, and also figure out a way to not have this 952,000 hit so much. So I go back to the question, what are some solutions that you guys have been brainstorming to alleviate this hit so that we can offer this relief?
Sales tax are pretty much already in somebody else's pocket, not ours,
Okay.
other than the 16.67% that we would be entitled to, because most of them are in some kind of an agreement. Permits, we can only charge so much in permits without hurting our residents also. Impact fees are only for infrastructure, so we can only use those for certain things, and even then, some of that is also with the WRF repayment is already talked for. for some other agreements that we have on impact fees that need to be reimbursed is also talked for already.
Rosie, what about grants? I think if we start aggressively going at grants, I think there's opportunities that could be there as well. We would just have to actually see what's out there, see what's available.
And staff is beginning to look at grants more now. We're not, if we can find something, we are applying for it that we can ask for.
That's awesome.
So what are some of those solutions, if I may ask you, Manager Dan?
Sure. And I just wanted to talk real quick about the incentivizing. So just as a quick example, so Meridiana, 100% of the ad valorem taxes for Meridiana go back to the developer. 50% of the sales tax goes back to the developer. Okay? Mud 42, Manvel Town Center, 50% of all those ad valorem taxes and 50% of all those sales taxes go back to the developer. So that's a huge incentivization for them. Del Bello Lake, 70% of the ad valorem goes back to the developer, 50% of the sales tax. Valencia, 90% of the city's O&M goes back to the developer. So there are, certainly incentivizations, there we go, built into a lot of those agreements. It's the other ones, it's the ones that aren't in a mud, they're not in a TERS, and that's where it's tough for those folks to develop. I just wanted to kind of sprinkle that a little bit. So back to your original question on where is it going to come from, while we're working on the budget, we're not looking to cut anything that we've got right now. So it's going to be on the growth. That's where it's going to have to come from. Rosie threw up probably our best example is pulling back on one of the big purchases that we were going to finally make this year on the street sweeper. We'll just have to wait. I mean, that's all there is to it. We can pull it back from that. That's a good example. There could be a pause because personnel that we need in City Hall until we build the next expansion, there's not a place to put them. So we might just have to wait on that until we hire those folks. So it's on the growth, I guess, is to answer your question.
So I have a question directly for you. What makes you nervous, the most nervous in your seat, seeing the logical side of things?
Sure.
And understanding building the city.
Right.
From your seat, what makes you the most nervous about adopting a tax exemption?
I mean, I have a homestead exemption. I love having the homestead exemption. Somebody mentioned a minute ago, who would not want that? Of course, I understand that. On this side of it, there are only so many revenue streams. There's just only so many places to get money from to operate the city. So it's scary to think that there's $1 million, that potentially, and that's a projection. We don't know, but I mean that's probably worst case scenario of what it could be. We know what it was like last year, and kind of being very frugal to your point. So we just fear the unknown, I suppose. Where's it going to come from? If we're going to do it, we're going to start at some point. So when do you want to start? Do you want to ease into it? I guess that's really probably the bigger question. What do you want to start with? Do you want to start with 2.5% or 5%, or like Harry said, just go straight for 10%? I guess that's up to y'all. We can fashion the ordinance however council decides to do that. Like we mentioned last Monday, we only had 5 out of 7 then. We got 5 out of 7 tonight. The point in having it on the agenda last week was to try and get it to stay on task with the July 1st deadline. So if there's any chance that all 7 of you, the majority of the 7 of you, want to vote this in, we need to get that first reading approved. And so it didn't get denied last time. It just didn't. There wasn't an action on it. So that question came up, and I know it came up from the public. Hey, I thought you couldn't bring it back for 90 days because it was turned down. It wasn't voted down. It just literally didn't have a motion or a second. So it's still appropriate, right, to have a motion and a second tonight. And then it's an ordinance, so it's got to have a second reading, and we can bring that back again next Monday night for second and final reading, and still stay on task with the July 1st.
So. One last question. So being the fact that we now have these hard concrete numbers, we've discussed it pretty much at length, that what would be at stake if the homeowners received a 10% homestead exemption. My question for you is, I understand it makes us feel a little nervous, but I think that council is fully confident, and we trust in your ability and Rosie's ability to be able to make it happen, as you guys have done for the last gosh, I don't know how many years we've been playing catch up. And I just want to make it clear that if this does go into effect, whether it's 5 or 10%, do you feel like it is setting the city back?
I wouldn't. Okay, so I'm gonna put together a graph for y'all for next Monday that shows the population as it's increased. I've shown a couple of this. Population has increased like this. The police department is very, very close as far as growing along with the population. Public Works is not. Public Works is a line like this compared to the police department. So we're way behind on having the number of people that we need to manage all of these new streets that we're getting, all these new sidewalks. I mean, it just takes human beings to actually do this. So we're not going to be behind, but it's going to cause us to not catch up as soon, right? There's going to be an impact. Of course there is. But that'll happen whenever you decide to do that. So if you want to do it now, then we'll just, that'll be sort of a course correct from this point forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And one suggestion that I would make, and we discussed it 2 meetings ago, is you do a phased approach with it. And so you do, I hear my voice back there. You never get used to hearing your own voice on video. The echo. So you do 5% this year. Then for next year's budget, you allow some catch up from a resource standpoint and a project standpoint. Then the following year, you do another 5%. And so over a period of 8 years, you do a phased approach of 5% each year till you get up to the 20%, which helps our local businesses, because what that means is more rooftops would want to come. It also, it encourages people to want to move here that want to establish their homestead. Big concern is people say they don't want rentals. They don't want apartments. They don't want rental homes. So then let's do something that incentivizes people to plant their roots in this city and to raise their families in this city. So whether it's 5%, 10%, we could get into a discussion of that at the next meeting. It ultimately comes down to, do we want to have the discussion at the next meeting? If we do, we have to vote this through tonight. If we don't, then don't vote for it. And then whichever way you vote, you have to answer to the people out there in the crowd about why you voted the way that you voted. And that's the reason why we sit in these seats, is to make those tough decisions. I know we just have a few minutes left. We have PD&Z that are coming up, but Councilman Hudson, Councilman Bonner, do you guys have anything that you'd like to add or say, or are you guys just taking it all in?
No, I'm good.
Good? Good. Councilman Oplager.
I'm sorry, I got one more question. So to be clear, if we go 5%, really no change, right? No, but if we go 10%, what I'm hearing is that there will be services that will not be able to do. Won't be able to clean ditches, won't be able to probably pave a road.
Goodness,
Right.
If
Is
we
that
said
what I'm
that,
hearing?
no, sir, I did not mean to imply that at all. No, we're not cutting anything. It's either whatever revenue you decide to take out of the city budget to use for homestead exemption is going to impact the rate at which we can grow. So the city services growth.
Right, so it's going to be more, what you just said, the public works, the team, the staff, right? People to do the job,
So
right?
I'm
So
making
there
up
may be a
numbers.
need out there, but you don't have the people.
True. Instead of hiring 6 people, we can only hire 3. I'm making up a number, but whatever that would look like.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Well, this is Manvel. We've done very well over the years of doing more with less, right? For 20 years that I know of, right? We've done very well. We had no money for a long, long time. So we're probably the kings at doing that.
All right, so
I have one last comment.
Councilwoman Sarmiento.
Okay, so I just want to be transparent. If we adopt a 2.5%, what we're looking at on this agenda, I would say sheet here, is an average of $46 a year off of your tax bill. Per year, $46. And it impacts the city $238,000. If we adopt a 5%, the homeowners' average would be $93 for the entire year off your tax bill. Your mortgage would probably come down a few pennies. 10% is $186 average for the whole year. That's what we're talking about. Okay? So in my eyes, would I like $100 or $200? The city is being impacted almost $1 million for the homeowners to have a 10% savings of an average of $186 a month. That's what we're looking at. So the hit is bigger on the city. But if we say, hey, we adopted this and we put it on the agenda and we voted in an exemption, we get to say we offer 10% exemption. So I'm just going to be very transparent and very clear that if we're going to do it, I don't see what the difference is between $50 and $200. We might as well go the full $200, $186 average. I do understand that that is going to set us back almost $1 million. But again, I really trust the people that we've hired here. They're the experts and they can get it done. So I'm in favor of the 10% as well, as Harry said. I do like the phased approach. I would love to get us to a 20% because we just can't count on Brazoria County anymore. They're putting us in this predicament because they continue to raise the values. We have property in Crystal Beach and they have not raised our values in over 5 years. They do not raise the values. They're raising the values here and it's affecting us. And if the city wants to rise, then we all need to also show up like this at Brazoria County. They're the ones that they're just maxing it out. And here we are fighting for $200 for a whole year because they won't step up to the plate. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Well, I think what you're saying, Mayor Pro Tem Sarmiento, is we need to all buy places in Crystal Beach. That's what you're saying there.
There's no development on it.
Well, I think one of the things, and Manager Dan and I talked about this, I'm an optimistic individual. One of the things to look at this positively is we have the revenue coming into the city where we can have this discussion, where we could give $1 million exemption and still be able to maintain what we have and even grow a little bit from a services standpoint. And I think being in this position, it's a now or never position regarding doing this, but it's a great opportunity that's in front of us. So would any council members like to make a motion? Councilwoman Sarmiento?
I'll make a motion. Make a motion to approve the first of the two readings of ordinance 2024-0-2022.
At what percentage amount? Because right now the ordinance says 5%. Are you having 5% or 10%?
I would like to go with 10%. That's my motion.
So we have a motion, we have a second from Councilman Bonner. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously 5-0. So now we have mayor and council comments. I'll let the community know we have a meeting on Monday night, workshop probably at 5, regular meeting at 6 p.m. This will be back on the agenda. We will have a full body at that point. So we need you guys, if you guys believe in this, if you want to see it, to show up in full force just like you've done tonight. Invite your friends, invite your family. We usually have coffee there as well, so you can come caffeinated. I know I'll be drinking it, but we hope to see you guys there. Any other mayor council comments? Okay. Hearing none, I will make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? I'll second. We have a second from Councilman Hudson. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously, 5-0, and we